Welcome, boys and girls, to Miss Stephanie, Miss Nicole, Miss Isabella, and Miss Crystal's third grade classroom. So today, we're going to first focus on science. And what we're focusing on, we're going to look over vertebrae and invertebrates. Do anyone know what a vertebrae and an invertebrate may be? Remember to raise quiet hands. Okay, let's find out since no one knows. Okay, for this lesson, with the vertebrae and invertebrate, we're going to compare and classify those animals into their appropriate animal kingdom. And what I mean about comparing and comparing is when we find out what animal has what different from the other one. So we're going to compare that. Classifying, we're going to put them in group them together. This animal belongs here, this animal belongs there. And mainly the animals going to belong in a different group because they're going to be different. They're going to all have you're going to have a couple of animals that are going to have something in common, then another group that's going to have something in common. So that's how we're going to classify and compare those animals. So once we review this information and we go over all the text and stuff and any questions you may have, we're going to use that to write an expository paper with 3 supporting statements. So we're going to find out the difference between a vertebrate and an invertebrate, and also classifying those animals into their groups. Let's move forward. Standards. Can someone tell me, why do we have standards? Yes, in the back, Jose. You're absolutely correct. Let's find out what these standards are for. What standards we found to go along with the lesson. We found 3 standards. First standard, SC3L 15 and 1. You're going to classify those animals. Remember, our title is classifying and comparing animals into their appropriate animal group. So here, the first standard, classifying the animals into their major groups according to their physical characteristics and behavior. Second standard, you're going to draw evidence from the literacy, meaning what evidence we have to use to say, okay, this animal goes here. The third standard, you're going to identify, research, and collect data. Set on a topic, issue, or problem, using the age-appropriate technologies. So we're going to look for information that we can use to put into our expository paper. Let's move right along. So vertebrae and invertebrate. Looking at this picture, can any one of you boys and girls tell me what is the difference between a vertebrate and an invertebrate? Okay, a vertebrate animal has a backbone. Invertebrate don't have a backbone, so that's what makes them different. But the vertebrate and the invertebrate, they have something in common. They give birth, they live, and they die. It doesn't matter how long it takes for it to happen. Both groups have to do that. So a vertebrate, as I said, was what, boys and girls? Correct. Don't have a backbone. Has a backbone. And an invertebrate, what? It don't have a backbone. So as you can see, we have some group of animals that we already see. We got a fish, we got mammals, we got reptiles for the vertebrates, invertebrates, we got a worm, we got spiders, we got insects. So these are some of the animals that we already know that we can put into the appropriate groups. But what we need to do further investigation, finding evidence, information, so we can use inside of our paper. And as we said, those vertebrates has what? A backbone. Invertebrates don't have a backbone. So with this lesson, we're going to use all of this text and information and evidence that we gather to write a paper. So for my ELL learners, you're going to be paired in a group with someone that speaks your native tongue and also speak English fluently, so they can help. For my students that are ADHD, I would allow them more time, even dyslexic kids, allow them more time on the lesson. And another thing that I would do, step-by-step instructions. When they need a break, give them a break. Do frequent checkups. See how far they have gotten. Ask questions. If you see that the child hasn't caught on to the first presentation, go over the information again. Visual aids will help. Bigger and bolder text help. All these accommodations will help those different kids.
Hi everyone. So today we're going to be identifying and classifying the different types of invertebrates and vertebrates. Now when we are going to be identifying them, we're going to associate which one is which and where they belong. Now, before we start with our examples of the different types of vertebrates and invertebrates, does anybody know any animals that belong to each category? Okay, so we're gonna go through some examples of the different types and associate them together. So now we have mammals. As a mammals, we can find polar bears, seals, and horses. They're usually warm-blooded vertebrates, and they usually give birth to live young babies. Now the next one that we have are reptiles. Does anybody know different types of reptiles that they must have seen in person or any time in their lives? Well, one of them is a crocodile. Another one is a snake. And usually they typically lay soft-shelled eggs on land. Now the next one is a bird. Now, birds are warm-blooded vertebrates. Now, remember, vertebrates are animals that have a backbone or a spinal column. Now, we have amphibians. Amphibians are cold-blooded. They're usually always in the water, and you can find them as like frogs and salamanders or toads. The next one is a fish. Now, these have gills, which means that they can breathe underwater. The next one that we have are arthropods. Now this is an example of an introvert, which means that they don't have a backbone. And you can find them as a lobster or a scorpion or different types. Now, when we get into groups, you're going to be sitting with someone that you will be sharing the same language and also the same cultures, and they will be mostly placed in the front of the class so we can have a one-on-one connection with the student and help them more if they have any other questions. Also, does anybody have any questions regarding how we're going to associate or classify each vertebrate or invertebrate?
All right, boys and girls, for the last part of your lesson, you're going to write an essay on what you learned about vertebrates and invertebrates. So for the last assignment you have about vertebrates and invertebrates, you're going to write a paper about what you learned in the lesson about vertebrates and invertebrates. The topic of your paper is going to be about the differences in the classifications of vertebrates and invertebrates. Before you start your paper, you should brainstorm. I've added a couple questions so that you can think about them and try to answer them in your writing. In your writing, you're going to try to answer as many of these questions as possible. What is a vertebrate? Define it. What is an invertebrate? Define it. What kinds of animals are vertebrates? Why are they vertebrates? What makes them a vertebrate? What kinds of animals are invertebrates? Why are they invertebrates? What makes them an invertebrate? Think about mammals, reptiles, birds, amphibians, fish, and arthropods, all that we learned in our lesson. Are these animals vertebrates or invertebrates? How are they alike and how are they different? I want you all to first think about your lesson. Think about what you learned in your lesson and brainstorm. If you would like, you may use the computers to research more about what animals you would like to discuss and what category they would belong to. As you research and brainstorm, write down key facts about these animals and why they would belong to either category, as you're going to need to support this in your writing. I'm going to go over the structure of your paper. Like any good 5-paragraph paper, you should start your essay with an introductory paragraph. This paragraph will state the main ideas you are speaking about in your report. This paragraph should be 3 to 5 sentences on key topics in your writing. Then, I want you to write at least 3 paragraphs with at least 3 to 6 sentences that clearly state your definitions, classifications, and give at least 3 supporting statements for your classifications of these animals. Remember that each paragraph should cover at least one topic. Finally, make sure you end your paper with a conclusion paragraph that summarizes the main idea of your paper. I've included a paper outline. This is a general outline of what your paper should look like and what you should have in your paper. You have an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and 1 conclusion paragraph. Let's get started. Are you ready to begin? Do you have any more questions?
Okay, everybody, so as you see, we have 2 different columns, vertebrates and invertebrates. We also have our animal classification groups, okay? And then we also have the words written on the board, just in case you guys had a few questions about what it means to classify and identify these groups of animals. Emma, can you read the first word for me and the definition?
Classify, to group or order by classes.
Perfect. Lorenzo, can you read the second word for me, please?
Identify, to figure out or show what something is.
Perfect. So how else can we classify things? Can we classify them in groups like, what other things can we classify? What can we group?
Color.
Colors, very good. And what
Shapes.
else? Shapes, very good.
Size.
Size, excellent. So we already know how to classify things. And if I say to identify, if I wanted you to identify shapes, what am I asking you to do?
What something is?
Right, but if I say
what
to
it is.
identify all the triangles in the classroom, what would you look for?
Triangle.
All the triangles in the classroom. The same thing goes for
Or like
animal
circle?
classifications. Exactly, find all the circles in the classroom. Exactly. But now for this lesson, we're going to classify and identify the different vertebrates and invertebrates. Who can read the first word for me? Anna.
Vertebrate.
And what is a vertebrate?
Animals with backbones or spinal column.
Very good. So can you put this card under the vertebrate section? There you go. Just kind of switch it. No, like that.
Oh.
There you go. And Enrique, what's an invertebrate?
It's an animal that does not have a backbone.
Very good. So we put this card,
Or an internal skeleton.
right, or an internal skeleton. So who can tell me what a dog is? Victoria.
Mammal? A vertebrate.
A vertebrate. Very good, because it has a backbone.
Oh.
How about a frog? Oop. Chase.
Amphibian.
No, but we're doing vertebrates and invertebrates first. It's a vertebrate. Very good. Let's do a hard one. How about a butterfly?
Invertebrate.
Emma?
Invertebrate.
An invertebrate. Very good. Okay, and how about a bee? What would a bee be considered? Yes.
An invertebrate.
An invertebrate. Very
Are
good.
all like insects?
All insects, exactly. Insects and most underwater creatures, unless they are
What's a clam?
fish. Very good. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next section, which is classifying all of the different animals
Catfish?
into into all of their different sections. Okay, so what is a catfish? What is this considered?
Fish.
Fish. It is kind of tricky though because it's got the word cat, so it could be a mammal too. Get it? No? Bad joke? Okay. How about a sea turtle?
Mammal?
Let's try again.
Reptile?
Yes, a reptile. Very good. How about a flamingo?
That bird. A bird.
A bird. Very good.
It has feathers.
Yes, it's got feathers. Very good. A mouse, Lorenzo.
A mammal. Mammal.
A mammal. How about, let's do something a little harder here. How about a salamander? Enrique?
Amphibian.
An amphibian. Do we see a pattern that's happening?
Yeah. Yeah, they're color-coded.
They're color-coded. Very good. What makes a bird a bird?
Feathers.
Feathers. They have feathers, wings, and they can fly. How about a mammal?
Us.
Us.
We are mammals.
We are mammals. What does that mean? We are covered in fur, hair. Very good. And we give live birth. Very good. You guys were listening. How about fish? What do fish use?
Like a slimy skin.
Slimy scales. They have scales and fins. They breathe where?
Through the gill.
Through gills underwater. Right? How about an amphibian? What is the difference in an amphibian?
They live in land and water.
They live in land and water. Very good, guys. And how about reptiles?
They have scales.
They have scaly skin, right? And do they live on the land or the water?
Water. Land.
Land. Very good. Okay.
Turtle.
Right, like the sea turtle. Exactly. So who can identify the dove?
Wait, but why is that one in the sea?
It breathes. That's a really good question. That one breathes through their lungs.
It's like a whale.
My not favorite animal. That one breathes through lungs, and yes, it does swim underwater, but it does not live underwater. It is not considered a fish. It's a reptile because of the hard shell. How about this one?
Fish.
It's a fish. Very good. How about, let's do a few more examples. How about a moose?
A mammal.
A mammal. Very good. And how about a toad?
Oh, there's one.
An amphibian. And let's do one more. How about that one?
Reptile.
A reptile. Very good. So now
Like
they're all different colors. They're all color coded. So we know that the birds are in yellow, the mammals are in red. So if you are getting a little confused, you can always refer back to the colors and see. And look, aren't the colors classified too? They're in different classifications. Each color represents a different animal kingdom. Good job. So now we're going to go over how to properly, or we're going to review, because you guys know how to write our sentences so that we can write our expository writings. Good job, guys. I'm going to let you continue this